This is the Unlimited Podcast by Ginsler Wealth. Please note that the views expressed and comments made by podcast guests are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect those of Ginsler Wealth or its employees. We're not discussing investments today, so we can skip the disclaimer. Awesome. Today on the Unlimited Podcast, we speak with Darren Rabie, sales leader extraordinaire. We talk about why sales is everywhere, understanding human nature, and the secrets to effective selling and success in general. Let's go. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Unlimited Podcast. This one should be fun. You know, I've taken a couple breaks actually from the really pure investment theme podcast, but we have some interesting guests and interesting topics. We hope you feel the same. And I think this is another one. Before we give you the whole theme of what we're doing today, I want to tell you a little story about my 15-year Harvard Business School reunion back in 2018. So the business school reunions are big events. Thousands of people come onto campus for their they go in 5-year increments. This was 15 for me. And a big part of the weekend, in addition to the dean's big presentation about what's going on in the school and, you know, and their initiatives and the roadmap, is there's 2 days of sessions where all the alumni and their, you know, guests, if they have guests, can choose different sessions to go to hear from the top professors there on every subject under the sun around business and other. And there was a particular session that I wanted to go to, actually was a sales-oriented session. And, you know, it didn't really have much of that education at HBS or Ivey, where I did my undergrad. And having been in business for, you know, 15, almost 20 years at that stage, thought that would be a good session. So walked into this sales focused, you know, professor session and was somewhat surprised, but maybe not totally surprised, that I could barely get in the room. Every seat in the classroom was filled. The aisles were filled. People were sitting on the walkways, standing room only in the back. And it really, I think, gave a sense of what people wanted to hear and see was this topic of sales. And the professor introduced himself, and, you know, during the introduction, he said, yeah, and, you know, and a few years ago, Harvard Business School introduced its first sales class in the curriculum. The entire room erupted in applause. I think it was even a standing ovation. And I think the signal was, aha, HBS has realized, and maybe their students should understand, that everything in life and business is about sales. Or is sales, I should say. And that was just an exciting moment to participate in that session and hear what HBS was doing or teaching its students around sales. So what do I mean? Everything is sales. You know, there are sales jobs, there are sales roles. But if you think about it, or at least the way I view it, every person in their life is selling something, whether it's for their work, whether it's a parent selling the children on why they should eat their greens or go to bed early, whether it is a teacher selling their students on, you know, why they might want to learn about math and science, whether it's employers trying to sell their or advise or recommend to their team that it might make sense to come back to the office a few days a week. Even if your role is not selling, my contention is everything is sales. So I'm very, very excited today to have my good friend Darren Rabie with us. Darren, basically, his life has basically revolved around two things, as he describes it: entrepreneurship and sales. To fund university, he started a number of businesses. After graduating, he founded and then sold 2 sales-related service businesses. And basically everything he's done, he's been the primary salesperson. He is really a sales expert. He has hosted over 400 sales-related workshops, speeches, and trainings. And basically, if I use his own words, he says, all I've ever done is start companies, sell, recruit, and coach sales. So what I thought it would be a wonderful topic, at least I find it interesting, is to learn a little bit from Darren about his experience really living and breathing sales for the last 30 plus years. And I'll before I say hello to Darren, I'll summarize once again in his own words. And he says, let's be honest, sales is hard and nobody really plans to get into sales. For many of us, a career in sales was not our dream job. We didn't stand up in front of our grade 1 class and announce our intentions to be salespeople. We all wanted to be astronauts, doctors, scientists, policemen, or veterinarians. And then people find themselves in sales. So, hi, Darren. Welcome. Sorry for my long intro there, but nice to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I wanted to just pick up on something that you said that really resonated with me, because I'm an Ivey grad, one of the schools that you mentioned, and
Right.
I've been really active in the school for 2.5 decades, doing a lot of the helping them with their case competitions and some of their mock dragon, Shark Tank kind of things that they do. And I kept every year, I would say, where's the sales course? Where's the
Right.
sales course? And then I started actually offering the sales course free. I would drive up to London once a year for all the MBAs and HBAs that wanted to come, and it would be standing room only.
Right.
And what's happened, and interestingly enough for me, is in my consulting practice that I've been running now since I sold my last business in the end of 18. I coach more people that are not in sales on their business card than I do coach people that are in sales.
Right.
So whether they're account managers or project managers or VPs of something, or even on the engineering side that work, anybody that is what I would call front of the house. Think about it like a restaurant, straight line in the middle. The line is the wall, kitchen on one side, front of the house on the other. Anybody that's in the front of the house is in sales.
Right.
If the chef is smart, he leaves the back of the kitchen sometimes to go to the front of the house to be in
Yes.
sales.
Yes. Yes.
Most of the time, they just stay in the back. So that story really resonated. And I will tell you that Ivey has added on entrepreneurial courses and sales courses.
Wonderful. Good to hear.
People
Critical.
think that sales is innate, that you're only born, you're born that way. So.
Yeah. No, amazing. Okay. Well, you know what? Speaking of born that way, maybe now I've given a little bit of background on you, and before we dive into all these sales related topics, can you give us the path to your involvement in and leadership in sales and sort of everything that's come from there?
Sure. So everything my entire life has been sales. And when I say from day one, I don't mean from day one after graduating. I mean from day one. I mean, I like to boast, and I say that tongue in cheek, that I got fired from every job I ever had.
Right.
And the reason why is because I'm unhireable, in the sense of I wanted to go out there and blaze my own trail. So, to be in sales, you have to have this natural, trailblazing kind of desire. That doesn't mean you have to start your own business, and it doesn't mean you're going to be unhireable. But at least for me, entrepreneurship and sales were always hand in hand. So I remember, starting my own window washing business. I remember, doing door-to-door sales jobs. I don't ever really remember taking the kind of classic, student job paths of being a waiter or working behind a counter at a restaurant. Although I did do that in grade 8, $3.05 an hour.
Right.
Very exciting to get an $18.
That's probably when I was flipping hot dogs at the Promenade Mall. Yeah.
Right.
Same thing.
So for me, sales has always been natural. It just so happened that my grandparents, my uncles, my aunts, my brothers are all entrepreneurs, and they all were the sales side of the entrepreneurship. I always say to somebody, if you're an entrepreneur and you can't sell, you better find a partner.
Right.
Or you better buy a business. So it's always been in my bloodline. With entrepreneurship, immediately, came sales. Otherwise, none of my businesses would get going. So as a teenager, I kind of figured out that I was entrepreneurial, probably because I also figured out I was unhireable, and I kept on challenging the status quo. I lost, I'm proud to say I got fired from 2 Grandin toys and from 2 Olive Gardens.
And do those stores even exist anymore in Canada?
Olive Gardens, I think there's a few of them. But then there was also a burger place, Licks, that used to be kind of the founder of the
Yeah.
first kind of fancy hamburger. I lasted one day. I wouldn't wear the hat.
Well, you probably didn't want to sing out the tunes that they sang, when they made the
Right,
burgers.
right.
I remember
I
that.
remember.
Yeah.
I remember. So it's a purely, it really though is a coincidence that I landed up in sales, in the sales industry. That just kind of just happened. It happened because I moved to Australia after Ivey, after working at General Mills for 5 minutes, realizing I wasn't a fit. My brother was in Australia. It looked warm and sunny there. I went there. I needed a job. I got a job with a startup telemarketing business lead gen company. That then turned into a business that I then owned. When I brought it back to Canada, I sold that in 2003. I started another business renting sales managers to small companies, then doing Salesforce.com implementations and ongoing managed service contracts for other companies. I sold all that in 2018. And now, as I say, I quit the band and I'm just a solo artist. And
Right.
today I just do sales consulting, sales coaching, and sales recruitment, for clients. And so that's kind of 30 years. I don't know how it happened. 30 years later, here we are.
They say time flies. So, before we dive into a little bit more detail on sort of tactics or strategies, or actually, I want to talk about human nature around sort of sales. But first of all, I'm doing a podcast on sales. I hesitated for a minute. Is this a good topic? Is sales a dirty word? Is it a clean word? And hopefully you can tell, I think it's absolutely critical and very important, but I think there's different ways people think about, oh, you're in sales, or are you selling me? Is this a clean or dirty word? How do you think about
So I think if you asked Larry from Three's Company,
it? Right?
he helped, for those of us of a certain ilk and a certain vintage, he created the vision that sales is a dirty word. I think if you also looked at WKRP and you watched that show, you'd remember, Norm Macdonald, or Les Messman, who were also in sales, and they also came across as slimy and self-serving.
Yeah.
But the reality is that sales has always been a dirty word, but shouldn't be. I often say that when you are selling, you feel like a salesperson, then something's wrong.
Right.
What I mean is that good selling should feel like you're providing someone with a solution to their problem, gap, or a need. Poor selling is trying to convince someone that they need something that they don't. Big, big difference. And I want to give in one other kind of anecdote that I think I've used, a bazillion times to get people to go, okay, that's interesting. So imagine for a moment that it's the 1500s. You have an apple orchard and I have an orange grove. Don't know why they're both not called groves or orchards, but anyway. If I want some apples and you want some oranges and we meet in the middle, what would you call that? Trade.
Trade, agreement. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say either a trade or a barter would probably be the two best terms.
Yeah.
In that scenario where there's a trade or a barter, who is the salesperson? Who's the buyer and who's the seller?
They're both.
Or neither.
Right.
Right? I can argue I prefer neither. I accept both, but certainly one or the other is not the right answer. If the person who had oranges, instead we replaced the oranges with money, and now they met in the middle, why all of a sudden does that person need to become a slimy, manipulative, self-serving person? Why can't they just be two people bartering?
Well, or a person that's helping the person who wants apples, I guess, to get the apples and feel great.
Right. Whether the cost of that was 10 oranges, or whether it was $7, or whether it was a cow, or whether it was a warm hug.
Right.
Whatever the deal is, it doesn't matter.
Right.
everybody's got to be happy enough.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, go ahead.
And so, we've worked together in the past, actually, when I was at a prior company. So I've had training from you, actually, but I also had some training maybe 10 plus years ago with a firm called Workability, and they had a definition of sales. And their definition of sales is as follows: the purpose of selling, and let's focus on that word selling for a second, because I'm going to switch that in a minute. The purpose of selling is to bring someone with you to a point or moment of choice where that person chooses an action that they consider to be in their best interest. So just like you said, if they want to buy the apples and they feel that that's in their best interest, they do it. But in the theme of selling is everything, a really interesting twist is actually to take out that word selling in the definition of selling, and I like to put in the word leading. And let me read the definition one more time. The purpose of leading is to bring someone with you to a point or moment of choice where that person chooses an action that they consider to be in their best interest. It's amazing to me, at least in the way this is phrased, that you can switch those two and it works perfectly. Because as I say, everything selling doesn't mean that you're buying something. It could mean that as a leader, you're helping a team, motivating a team, or accomplish a goal, or move together, or, and as long as it's in the best interest of the person agreeing to follow you or purchase from you or whatever it is, then that is a good trade or a good barter, as you say. So that's the definition of sales that I think about. I don't know. Do you have a definition that you carry with you, or how do you think about it?
I've always used that barter example because it takes away all the emotion. And I really like the definition that you shared, because at the end of the day, everyone's only going to do something that's in their best interest.
Right.
And so, that's that win-win idea. That's that win-win idea. Absolutely. But what's interesting, which is I think the key message in this whole story as we kind of start to get into some tactics, is that in today's world, probably the easiest, cleanest example of selling right now that you would have never seen before is law firms have business development and marketing departments, accounting firms. You now have dental practices, chiropractic offices, massages. It used to be hang a shingle and they will come.
Right.
Now they're all selling. And how are they selling? Well, that includes marketing, but they're also selling by buying an app that sends you a reminder, because that creates a better experience. They're also selling by teaching the people at the front of the house after you leave your dentist to book your next appointment. They're also selling by asking you if you would like a certain gift, if you could make a referral. They're also selling by the look and the feel of the office, that they're put a little bit more effort into painting the walls and putting a fish tank and having the dentist dog come and lick everybody's toes while we're sitting in the waiting room. It's all part of that human experience. And that's why today I work as much with an accountant or a lawyer, because they're working in the front of the house.
Right.
Right? You're in a dental office, you're in the front of the house. You're in a chiropractic clinic, you're in the front of the house.
Yeah.
If you're talking to the customer, you're in the front of the house.
Right. Okay.
And what's even more interesting today, the last kind of one today, is an interview, is in recruitment. Because now it literally is a barter. The employees out there, you need to sell them on on why they should join you, why you should have the honor of having them join your company. It's not you're just lucky to have a job, sit there.
Right.
That mentality has changed. So it's a real negotiation. Some people want more vacation. Some people want more upside mobility. Some people want more flexibility. Some people want a better benefits package. Some people want to adjust their hours to be able to match their picking up their children from daycare. Everybody values things differently. And that goes back to consider the actions in their best interests.
Right.
Same thing with hiring someone.
So speaking of what people want, or let's phrase another way, how humans behave, or human nature, to be effective at selling, and again, selling, not the dirty word selling, but selling, what you're trying to help people achieve. You've lived and breathed this for 30 years. Can you share with us? Like, let's go back to basics almost. I do that a
Sure,
lot here. Back to
sure,
basics. Like,
sure.
talk
So it
about
doesn't
human
matter.
nature and how that sort of, you got to think about that as you're in sales world.
Right. So I do this module all the time with people, and I preface the module by saying that the only way for this brief moment in time that I can get you to forget your preconceived stereotypes and notions about humans is for us to imagine for a moment they're all from another planet. And so I've been on this, I've been down to earth for a while doing my reconnaissance. I'm coming back up to our planet. I'm grabbing you. I'm
Right.
bringing you down to earth, and I'm going to introduce you to this strange thing called creatures. These thing creatures called humans.
Right. This reminds me of the Jerry Seinfeld joke, right? If you brought aliens down from Mars and they saw the humans walking the dogs and the humans are picking up the dogs' droppings, who would the aliens think are in charge here? But anyway,
Right.
that's a whole nother story. You keep going.
That's funny. I actually do remember that. So whether I'm working, it doesn't matter who I'm working with. If you're interacting with another human being, you need to understand the following principles. Number one, humans are generally disorganized. So unless something is a priority for that person, might be priority for you, but unless something is a priority for that person, there's a very high probability that whatever you ask them to do, whatever you do in terms of trying to chase them and follow up with them and et cetera, has a very high probability falling through the cracks. Therefore, at the end of a meeting, if you're talking to somebody at the end of the meeting and you agree you should talk again in a couple of weeks, book it before you walk out the door.
Right.
If you agree at the end of the meeting with somebody that you should go through that you should put together a proposal, book time to review the proposal with them before you put down that phone. Because since humans are disorganized, there's a very high probability that they won't read the proposal, or will read it slow and late, or will read it so quickly and so thinly that they won't interpret it the way it was intended. And then if they have any questions, now they have to remember to email you, which they're going to forget to do or put on the burner because you're not their priority.
Right.
So unless they're on fire and you are a fire extinguisher, you need to understand that everything you do, if you don't take control and drive every next step, sending emails like, hi, I just want to check out if you have any questions about the proposal. That's like taking a fish off of the hook, throwing it back in the water. And then no shock. You have to then reel up, put a worm on, and then try chase the fish again.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. The second one is that humans are generally uncomfortable directly rejecting people. We see that in our lives all the time, even our personal lives, how people break up with people in personal relationships, in intimate relationships, how salespeople find out that they lost the sale 3 months later, how they chase and never get a response because nobody wants to be uncomfortable. So how do you solve that? It's actually quite an easy solve. If you ask a straight question, you get a straight answer. And one of the easiest questions that you can ask, and I'll use a dating scenario, is if you want to know if the person wants to go out with you again, ask them on the next date. That will be the answer. That will be the telling sign. If at the end of a day you said, I had a nice time tonight, we should get together again sometime, and you keep it vague,
Yeah.
that person will probably say, sounds good, text me, and then they will ghost you.
We're turning the podcast into a dating app.
But it's the same because dating is sales.
Well, there you go.
Right?
There's the
You
theme.
said everything is sales, bro.
Yeah.
You didn't say everything in a business, in an organization is sales. You said everything.
You are correct. That's why we're here.
So if I, though, at the end of that date said, I had a really nice time tonight, are you free next Saturday to go to a Blue Jay game? I'm now going to get two very clear responses. Yes. Or what I call the bull dance, which is, well, things are really busy. We got a lot on the go right now. I have to talk. This is now business talk. Now I got to talk to my partner. I've got to look at the budget. All of that is the bullshit.
Right.
You want the Volcans as your second best option because you don't want to walk back to your car thinking that the person does want to go on a date with you and they don't. Right? So because humans are uncomfortable directly rejecting others, they use avoidance as their strategy. And your job is to disable avoidance through asking for a direct next commitment. Sales.
Yeah.
Next. People don't express how they feel or ask unless they're invited. So my grandfather made it very simple. If you want a straight answer, ask a straight question. So the worst question you ask at the end of every interaction is, do you have any questions? The best question that you can ask at the end of an interaction is, what questions do you have about that? What questions do you have about that? What questions do you have about that? How can I further explain this? How can I clarify that? What are your thoughts about this? What do you think? What are you concerned about that? How are you feeling about this? Where do you see that will help you? You ask a straight question. How is anybody not going to answer it?
Right.
So it's simple. Want a straight answer? Ask a straight question. People don't ask for help unless they're invited. Same thing. So just follow the same formula, right? Ask them. If at the end of a training, it's that if I was a Salesforce.com trainer, not a salesperson, trainer, you've already got the contract. I'm on the phone. I'm giving a training session to somebody at a company. I'm teaching. At the end of the session, I have the option to say, do you have any questions? Or I have the option to say, what questions you have about how you create an account? What questions you have about how you synchronize between your Outlook and your Salesforce? What questions you have about connecting your emails to the related opportunity? You're going to get answers. Why? Because people feel invited, right? Generally speaking, you and I both know that if you and I were sitting in a room one-on-one, you'd ask me anything, I'd ask you anything.
Yeah.
But if we took this room and made it 25 people, most of the people in the room who have the same questions won't ask. They'll just step back. So you need to invite them, roll the red carpet out. Want a straight answer? Ask a straight question. Next, people don't like surprises. One of the things that it is absolutely unequivocally true that when we do, as human beings, that if we don't know what's going on, we either A, assume nothing is going on, or bad things are going on. So when we hire a construction company, I say to people, I've had people in construction companies say, help me with sales. I say, how about you return people's calls?
Right.
I don't know. How about when you say you're coming on Monday, come on Monday?
Really small detail, eh?
How
Very
about
simple.
if you can't come on, how about if you can't come on Monday, on Sunday, you told them that you're coming Monday, and then you can't come on Monday, you send a message letting that person know that you can't come on Monday, but therefore what's going to happen? I always say that when customer service people or anybody in a business receive an inquiry from one of their customers for the status of something. Hey, can I get an update on my shipment? Hey, can I get an update on my account? Hey, can I get an update on this? Hey, can I get an update on that? My first response, my immediate response is, why did the customer have to ask?
It's a good one. Yeah.
Right? A customer service minded person said, oh, you asked me a question and I answered it. Yay. A consultative minded person, a leader minded person, like you were using in that example, leading. A leader as a sales would say, shame on me for having my customer feel so frustrated that they had to call me 3 times to get an update on something.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
Okay. So if you know that humans don't like surprises, you will give them good news all the time. You will give them bad news as appropriate with with the updated adjustments and pivots needed to get things back on track, whether it's whether you went and bought a suit and you got it custom tailored, they say, oh, we'll call you when it's ready. When is that? When is that? Give somebody a date and time. Give somebody an update. Keep them in the loop, and they won't bug you.
Right.
And then when somebody says, where should I get a suit? They're going to say, go to Tom. He'll keep you in the loop. Not go to Tom. His fabric is so soft. It's Tom. He'll take care of you or keep you in your loop. You'll never be left guessing.
Yep.
Okay. Next. People value those they perceive are the experts. So this one's an interesting one because when I talk about this one, people automatically say, but I'm not an expert. I don't know everything about everything. I don't even know everything about the topic. And in fact, I just had this conversation with somebody an hour ago, and she's 2 weeks into the company. So I said to her, you must be thinking this is like the most ridiculous thing ever because you barely even, she works for a pneumatics company. I said, you probably just learned that pneumatics starts with a P.
That's a good spelling bee word.
I'm sure some kid in grade 4 will get it.
Yeah.
So I said to her, what does it mean to come across as the expert? It is to have the confidence to have an opinion, make recommendations, provide thoughts, provide suggestions, provide direction, ask good questions, suggest next steps. None of that has anything to do with knowing the mechanics of a pneumatic pump.
Right.
For example, let's just say you were sitting in your dentist's chair, and this dentist hypothetically was the most intelligent and well-known, well-rounded dentist anywhere. Nobody knew more. But you walked in, but the dentist comes in and says, I just saw a cavity in your mouth. What would you like to do about it? My response would be, get out of the chair, because if you're asking me what I should be doing about my cavity, then you're an idiot.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you use this story. I was at the dentist this morning. My dentist is very good, but had my teeth cleaned. It was all finished. And the hygienist says, I just checked your chart. It's been 2 years. You haven't had x-rays. And, basically, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to do what you tell me, what you suggest I do. Is 2 years a long time? Is it a short time? Do we need to do them emergency right now? Anyways, we did the x-rays, and I just want to make sure everyone knows I have great teeth. Everything's good. So, but yeah, I hear you.
6 months ago, my washer and dryer is acting up. I go onto the Jiffy app, which I love, Jiffy On Demand, use it all the time.
And now we have to ask them to pay us for that product placement. Thank you.
I'm not sure I'm that valuable.
We don't take any fees from anybody. Anyways, go ahead.
So the guy comes upstairs and he says, you got 3 options. Fix, replace, or let it die. And then replace.
Right.
What do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. I don't know anything about HVAC.
Right.
I don't know anything about the washer and dryers. I said to him, what do you suggest? He said, let it die. I said, okay, great, let it die. So, it's so funny because I spent a lot of time in my career trying to explain people the difference between assertive and aggressive.
Right.
Certain people are born thinking that assertive is the same word. It's interchangeable. Aggressive is Larry from Three's Company. Assertive is taking the lead on a relationship and being the expert, which takes us to the last couple of points. Now, so the last couple of ones are people want to be validated. One of the easiest ways to do that is to repeat back to people what they said. That's it. You go into a suit store and the person says, so from what I understand, you just got a job in investments. You need 3 solid suits. that you're going to interchange with a whole bunch of different shirts. You currently have only one black, funeral suit at home. You wanted to have the ability to be both casual and dressed up. Given that, here's what I want to recommend. You repeat that to somebody, people are like, yeah, that's what I said. Next, people respond to targets and deadlines. This one's so funny because if I said to you, Brian, if I sent you an email, Brian, hey man, I'd love to catch up with you. Let me know when you're free. And I sent that to 10 people, all named Brian, let's say. I'm going to get mostly no response for a long time. But if I send an email to somebody that says, hey, Brian, I'd love to get together with you to chat. Are you free next Thursday afternoon? Around 2, 7 or 8 out of those 10 Brians are going to get back to me because they're feeling that obligation that, goes up. That is a human trait. It's a wiring. No differently than if I was told in grade 6 that my book report could be handed in whenever.
Right.
It would still not be handed in.
Right.
And then also no differently than any personal trainer anywhere on earth that's worth 2 cents will tell you that the best way for you to get into the rhythm of exercise is to put it in your calendar. Right? I teach one of the things on my website. It says, Darren also teaches life management. And it's really just an overall thing of saying, how do you just navigate through life? And one of the biggest aspects is plan your work and work your plan. Well, plan your work and work your plan also means planning their work and as well.
Yeah.
So if I'm a personal trainer and I'm listening to this, I'm, as part of my philosophy, I'm mandating my clients put workouts into their calendar and show me to create accountability.
Well, it's funny you say sort of, I don't know if you call it life management or life or coaching, but you're going through this list. I know there's a couple more to go, but as I listen to these are traits you want to understand to be effective in sales, I guess. But actually, I think what you're sharing with people is traits to be effective in achieving goals or being successful or a successful life, like this is the skills of effectiveness as far as I'm concerned. This applies to everything.
I had a conversation with 3 interns just before this call started, and it was actually their last call. They worked with me for 4 months at a commercial real estate brokerage client. And I said to them, guys, I want you to remove the word sales from your minds. What I'm here is I want you to think that I'm just some old man trying to give you some really great life advice.
Yeah.
Because as long as you're going to be interacting with human beings, you need to lock this stuff in. Because it's going to pay dividends, no matter what the job is, unless you're working in a basement of a lab with rats. So next,
let's finish off.
Okay, the last 2 ones are people are naturally appreciate others that makes their life easier. So really the analogy that I like to say here is imagine for a moment that relationships are like a car in the sense that there's certain seats. So the best seat in the car for the relationships that you work on, that you have, doesn't matter whether you're selling them or account managing or a wedding coordinator dealing with Mr. and Mrs. Jones as they're about to go through their nuptials. But if you want them in the passenger seat, why? Because the passenger seat has the exact same view of the road as the front seat, as the driver's seat, except zero work.
Well,
so what does that mean?
But when my wife is in the passenger seat, she thinks she's also directing me and my drive. And that's a whole other story. That's another podcast. We'll leave that for another time.
Normally, when I say this particular analogy, somebody says, it's like the quintessential set.
Yeah.
But the idea is that if you're if you're booking every next meeting at the conclusion of the current interaction, if you're following people up with recaps, if you're following up with the next meeting reminder, if you're putting in the agenda, if you're asking all the questions, if you're telling them your recommendations, your opinions, your suggestions, what you think are the right next steps, What are they doing? Showing up and participating. That's it, which is exactly the passenger seat. You don't want them in the back seat because the back seat doesn't have a good view of the road.
Right.
Except for back when you and I were kids in the 70s, where kids used to sit in the middle seat.
Or the back seat of the station wagon with no seat
facing
belts.
the other way, facing the other direction.
backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. With the wood paneling.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the last one, I think, is probably the one that people understand the most, which is to say that people know that, at the end of the day, people do business and work with people that they like. And so people say, well, that's obvious. But then I say, okay, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you make yourself likable as quickly as possible? And the answer is you got to make the first move. Meaning you need to be vulnerable first. So if I'm meeting you, Brian, for the first time, and I'm seeing that amazing picture in the back of your video of the Beatles, then I have an opportunity to comment. If I don't take advantage of that opportunity, then the opportunity is lost where I could have invited vulnerability into our relationship. So I either have to say something, share something about myself, or I need to ask something about you.
Right.
Which, as an aside, is one of the reasons why I strongly recommend people that are doing a lot of video meetings, make sure that their backdrop, what's behind them, invites dialogue.
Yep. For sure.
Right? If you're a blank background, I, as the other person, I want to see and look around and pick up on something.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you got to make the first move. You got to take initiative, and that's, for some people, it's just wired in their personality. Yesterday, there's a lady out at the grocery store with her mother, and her mother is clearly probably in her early 90s. So I happen to be standing near her, and I say to her, "Hi, young lady, come here, Alpha." And she smiles, and she just completely changed.
Right.
She completely changed as a human being in 10 seconds. My dad, that's my dad. I learned that from my dad. My dad talks to everybody. I remember going on business trips with my dad, and he would drive me. We would go to Montreal, and he would take me to the meetings, and every receptionist, back in the days, we called them receptionists. Every receptionist, "Alan, how are you?" And because why? Because he treated them like human beings. He connected with them and shared with them that I'm a person, you're a person. Who cares what we do, how much we make, whether we're male, female, young, old, we're all just people.
Yeah.
You gotta
Well,
connect.
well, and you have that personality too, obviously. And that's a particular trait. Not everybody has.
And it's not a requirement though, but you do need to have the courage to make the first move. You don't have to be extra, you don't have to be, extroverted to the nth degree like you and I to be able to be successful in sales. Otherwise, a very small percentage of the world would be able to sell.
I'm not sure I match your extrovertedness, but
I don't know, buddy.
So,
Right,
so as maybe going back to a comment I made before, as you were going through all these traits, it sounds like the action that one should think about relative to each of these sort of traits of human beings that you mentioned, to be successful, is taking control. Is that a common theme? Is that a fair comment? And does that apply to sales, to life, because I'm sensing a theme around that?
Yeah. So I basically, at the end of the day, when I teach people, I've got about 35 different modules that I coach, everything I've written myself. But if you were to try a bow around all the modules, there are 3 themes that pop out universally. Sometimes one theme, sometimes 2, and sometimes, in rare instances, all 3. Number 1 is take and keep control of every relationship that matters. Okay? So if that relationship matters to you, if you're the one that wants that relationship to grow, you got to take control of it. You take control of it in the short term by booking one meeting after the next as you continue to drive forward. And you take control long term by using your CRM to remind yourself to follow up with somebody in 6 months or in 3 months or in 1 year.
Right. But again,
actually do it.
But again, so you're using an example for business, but your overall theme seems to be, this is life. If you value that as a partner, as a friend.
Absolutely. So for example, I have a reoccurring task on the first Monday of every single month to print out my credit card from the bank, to go through it, and to make sure the payments are made.
Right.
I'm taking control. So I always say there's three things you take control over. You can use it's between you and your audience, between you and your friendships and your relationships personally, and between you and yourself.
Right.
So, I have in my calendar every, fourth Thursday of the month to send out my invoices to clients. I don't remember to do it. I take control of it. I set it. When Ron Popeil used to say it, in 1990s over a 2 a.m. bowl of Quaker Harvest Crunch would be set it and forget it. That was kind of his line. Purchase.
Right.
Well, I remember that cold bowl of cereal post bar very well. I'm sure you had many a bowl.
No
Better
comment.
than the hot dog. Better than not much better than the hot dog.
Right.
So the second one that I always said is be a consultant, not a transactor. And all that means is ask questions. So the simple two examples that I give a bazillion times is you walk into a suit store. So if you walk into, let's call it a chain suit store. In Canada, we have, Moores and Tip Top. In the US, they have Joseph A. Banks. And you say, hi, I'm looking for a blue suit. The person's going to ask you what size, and they're going to take you to the suits.
Right.
If you walk into a higher end place, as I've heard, I've never been in them. I'm not fancy enough. But I'm sure you, Brian, have been to them. And you walk in there and you say, I'm looking for a suit. They say, before we talk about a suit, tell me about you. Where do you wear suits? How often do you wear suits? What is your classic style? If I were to go into your wardrobe, what would I see? How would you characterize your style? What is the purpose of these suits? Is this a long-term or short-term? Is this a frequent wear?
Right.
Given all of that, then I would then start to show you things. And then I would consult. I would show you options, ideas. So everything starts with being, the word around being a consultant, an easier word would be somebody that's got natural curiosity.
Yeah.
If you've got natural curiosity, Brian, I mean, from the second I met you, you come across with genuine natural curiosity. And that disarms people in front of you, not for the purpose of manipulation, because that's not what sales is.
Right.
But it's for the purposes of getting into a situation, getting into a position that you can then consult and give your suggestions. Right? So the second one is really simple. Somebody orders a burger and fries, says, I would like to order a burger and fries. You're going to ask them why.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last one is no matter what your job is, you have to be a human being first and whatever you do for a living second. Nobody remembers business people. People remember humans.
Yeah.
And humans make people feel things. If you think that the denominator is the price and the numerator is the value, one of the biggest contributors to the value, which you want to be bigger than the numerator in order to justify the denominator, is you.
Yeah.
You, the human being. Not you, the brochure, not you, the PowerPoint presentation, not you, the website. You, Ryan Ginsler. It looks like Jerry Seinfeld.
I agree with you 100%. So, okay, so we spent a lot of time talking about the human nature and talking about how to be successful at sort of selling, and let's call it life even. And you've given some examples. Can you take all that and summarize it into, 30 years of working with salespeople over the years? Is there something that stands out, a story, a person of this was the epitome of the way to be successful in whether it's sales or effective or whatever, or maybe the opposite, maybe a bad approach that you've seen? So an anecdote or however you want to describe it, some of the best
Yeah.
folks that you've worked with?
Very interesting because throughout my career in sales, I've had, in sales consulting, sales, whatever, like everything to do with sales and professional services in that area. People think that most owners believe that their number one strategy for growing their sales is to add salespeople. So what I'll say is, number one, should not be your only option. That's a whole other conversation about sales operations and sales process and strategy and technology and efficiencies and all those kinds of things, no differently than factories require efficiencies and productivities, and finance requires efficiencies and productivities. But when we do look to hire people, the one thing that I've experienced a lot of, especially for those of my clients that are in more niche type industries, more technical industries, more industrial manufacturing type industries, is that they're so focused on making sure that the person knows everything about the product. Oh, we sell pneumatic pumps. I want to hire somebody that already knows pneumatic pumps. We sell, we sell industrial supplies. I want somebody that's worked for a competitor that's sold industrial supplies. And I say to them, that is not the way to look at it. So what I did over the years is I came up with 12 C's that kind of define, and it's on my website. If you go to my website under recruitment, it's just listed there.
Yeah, and we'll put a link on the show notes for sure. So it'll all be there along with your bio and all that.
Okay, great. So
But the 12, you're scaring me with the 12 C's because I know that both of us have a time limit here. So
okay, so I'm going to tell you really quick.
Fire.
Number one, somebody with a good canvas. They're smart, motivated, self-starter, take initiative. Character, integrity, values, respect, humility. Courage, we talked about that one before. Curiosity, we talked about that one before.
Yeah.
Consultative, we talked about that one before. Competitiveness. For example, I like hiring people that have been competitive in certain aspects of their life, sport or whatever. Coachable, confident, some charisma, natural compassion. You can't be, in today's world, we're not looking for, bold you over salespeople.
Yeah.
Care in how they plan their life and plan their work and work their plan. And then, of course, being somebody that is, is a community-based person, somebody that actually, considers that they're a member of the world, not just, on their own little island.
Right. And do you feel that people, again, maybe focus a little bit more on the sales side now? Is this something that you're either born with this and you have all those traits and you're going to be successful? Now, again, a little bit more narrow in this sort of sales focused question, or can you learn this?
So there are certain things of this that you cannot learn, but what I can tell you is that there's plenty of people that don't harness what they have. And there's also plenty of owners that hire salespeople that don't have most of these things. Now, if you're looking for a hunter, somebody that's pounding on brand new doors, then these things need to be even more. If you're looking for a project manager, someone who's looking to take and execute a project and keep clients feeling good along the way through all those other human nature things we talked about, then it can be a different score. What I like to do is give this a score. Everyone gets a score out of 5 on each one of these line items, maximum of 60 points. I set a minimum threshold of 50 points for a hunter, 40 points for an account manager, and so on.
Got it. So, going to wrap up shortly here. Again, the theme is everything is sales, but I actually want to have a little bit of a focus around sales as a role or as a job. So maybe 2 questions on that. First is a little bit more tactical. I'm sure in your 30-year sales training, sales career, the world, for everybody, the world has changed dramatically. Technology, there's this thing that used to be called the telephone that sat on people's desks that people tended to use to speak to other humans. I suspect that is not being used as often in daily communication in businesses and this and that. How's the role of a salesperson, tools, role, experience, I guess, changed over the past few decades, and what do folks do today that want to be successful in the new environment?
So Sales itself has not changed. Only the tools have changed. That's it.
Okay.
The tools are both a blessing and a curse. The tools have made us unbelievably productive. The ability to have, 25 conversations in a day instead of having, 3, like my dad would have when he was a road warrior. But the tools also have created a lot of lazy people that don't understand how hard it is to go out there and pound pavement. Pavement being in quotes in this example.
Yeah.
So this idea that you're just going to sit at your desk and bang out emails or play on LinkedIn all day is also a fallacy. Because I can tell you that if I decided that I wanted to focus on the industrial community, and I would have more intimate and further developing conversations in 4 hours than I would in that one conference if I had the courage to go up and talk to people than I would in 700 phone calls over 6 months or cold calls.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, people have basically, I recommend variety. Number one. And there are many doors to be able to get into the same building. So I recommend that, you do a variety, you do some cold calling, you do some, if you can, go knocking on doors in the areas that make sense to you. If your business like if there's a congregation of certain businesses, like in industrial areas, for example. But I also think that you should then join the associations, join the conferences, the networking groups. Get involved in being active in your community. Go where your community congregates. I also believe in building relationships with COIs, centers of influence, people that know people that know people that know people.
Yep.
Okay. You're my COI and I'm your COI. We know people that know other people. If you know what I do and I know what you do, then there's an opportunity for referrals, as long as we don't just meet for coffee once, promise to stay in touch and then never talk again. Because no differently than any seed you planted. You plant a seed, but you don't give it any water, fertilizer, sunshine, or dirt. Don't be shocked if it doesn't grow.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in variety. And I'm a big believer in consistency. So just like I plan my tennis time and I plan my workout time and I plan my invoice time and I plan my pay my credit card time, I plan my business development time.
Got it.
The last thing I would say is, if you're not a person that wants to sit behind a desk, don't get a job that involves selling nationally. Get a local sales job. And so you can go out there and get in your car and drive around if that's what you want to do. So you need to be true to yourself.
So that's a good segue actually to maybe my last sort of focus question here. Yes, we're talking everything to sales, but again, back to sales roles at firms. Would you encourage young folks coming out of school to, really jump into a sales type of role if that's something that might interest them? Or alternatively, what can younger folks do early in their careers to help them build a strong sales toolkit? Assuming my contention that everything is sales is actually a true statement.
Right. So I think something as simple as if you're in high school, go, get a job that is customer or client facing. Even more so, go out there and get a job that requires you to take initiative. So for example, being a waiter does not require you to take initiative. It is your job to go up to the table and say, how may I help you?
Right.
Well, but if you're working at a bank, it also does not require, or a retail shop, it also does not require you to take initiative. But if you're working, doing some business development, or you're going door to door, I interviewed a gentleman yesterday for a client of mine. And I always ask the question when I'm interviewing people, I say, what did you do to make money in high school? It's one of my favorite questions. And he said, I took a job selling landscape services and window cleaning services. I went door to door every summer for 3 years. Talk about learning. Holy moly.
Yeah.
So I would recommend taking the biggest risks that you can when life is the cheapest it'll ever be.
Yeah.
And then you one of two things is going to happen. You're going to realize that you love it and you're good at it and you're going to do it, or you're going to realize you hate it and you don't want to do it and you go do something else.
Right.
But I can tell you it is one of the most amazing default jobs.
Yeah.
And so, I recommend that you start the default as soon as you can, because, as well as I do, Brian, we had a conversation. It's like the difference if you started Ginsler Wealth 10 years ago versus if you started Ginsler Wealth a year ago relative to where you're at in your life, your age, your requirements, your family, et cetera, et cetera. It only gets harder.
Yep. Well, amazing. Okay. Well, look, thanks, Darren, for all of that. I want to wrap it up by the question that we asked every guest on this podcast. And, our theme, Ginsler Wealth, your wealth unlimited. We can help our families with really anything that touches them financially. We can look at any investment. We can get involved. There's no limit here to how we'd like to help. Speaking of consultative and trying to help people get what they want or need. So our question to all our guests is, assuming, the world is unlimited to you. It has been, it always has been. If you weren't or hadn't been doing a sales coaching, sales leadership, sales role for the past 30 plus years, what might you be doing with yourself? And I think I know your answer already, but our listeners don't know you as well as I do.
Oh, well, I think you think I was going to say I'd be a professional tennis player.
That's correct.
But I don't believe that I would have ever been able to be. So the question is, what would I like to do that I know I could have succeeded at? And
Sure.
The answer would not have been tennis.
Okay.
What I would have really liked to do that I know I could have succeeded at is being in the entertainment business.
Yes, I know you're a singer and a dancer too, aren't you?
Yeah, but more so in terms of I was a DJ growing up as a kid, and so I could have parlayed that into running my own entertainment business. I could have then the next thing you know, you're getting into the entertainment world is a very intriguing, broad world. I think I would have been good at that. I could have even seen myself saying, working on running entertainment at a Club Med when I was 22, or running the Caribbean cruise for some cruise liner when I was 20. Like, those are the kinds of things that if probably I wasn't born where I was born, into the culture I was brought into with certain expectations and certain kind of cultural dynamics, probably I would have gone down a path like that. So there's your answer.
Okay, amazing. I'm trying to think in my head what your DJ handle would be. DJ Darren.
No, I DJ'd with another guy named Darren, and we were D&D Music Factory.
Oh man, what's that? Shoot, I can't remember the song of what was the other music factory? CNC. I've got the power.
The song was called "Make You," and I've got the power.
I've got the power.
I was a DJ. I knew this kind of silliness.
Right. Well, look, you might not have been a DJ, but you definitely got the power. Thanks, Darren. Really, really fun chatting with you. Hope our listeners, I should say, found that interesting. And really thank you for your time. I look forward to our next tennis match, even though you're not professional, which is good for me because neither am I, that's for sure.
Right.
All right. All the best.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talk to you soon.
The Unlimited podcast is hosted and produced by Brian Ginsler and is edited and mixed by myself, David McMillan. This podcast is not to be taken as investment advice. If you like what you heard, don't forget to rate the podcast and follow us on social media @Ginsler Wealth. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.